Hey everyone, Kevin here. I have some big updates regarding what the Fed just said about the economy and future stimulus. I'm going to go ahead and break down some of these quotes and we'll react to them and comment on them. This was an interview between Federal Reserve President of the Bank of Minneapolis. Remember, we have different districts in the United States. He came on to the ABC This Week show with George Stephanopoulos, and I'm going to break down some of the most important bangers, and we're going to comment on how this kind of relates to us and stimulus, because he specifically asked for a very targeted type of stimulus. Two types, actually. We'll talk about that. Let's get into the quotes first. Here we go. First quote, "What I've learned in the last few months, unfortunately, is that this is more likely to be a slow, more gradual recovery." And that's not so good. That's not exactly what we're looking for. A lot of us are talking about potentially that V-shaped recovery where we recover quickly, or worst case, we'll have a little bit of a W next year with the second wave. But here he's kind of indicating we might have a bigger, sort of longer, drawn-out U-shaped recovery, and then maybe even some ripples down the way, which we'll get to some more of these quotes in just a moment. But I want to touch on the fact, because this totally relates, is why is it that we see headlines like, oh, Disney Shanghai booked out immediately, like instantaneously booked out when Shanghai reopened it? Why is it that cruise bookings are up 600%? Well, let me just give you a quick little bit of background on why these article titles read this way. First of all, Disney Shanghai opened at 30% capacity. And that's why that 30% booked out right away. It still has lost the other 70%. As far as cruise ship bookings, they're talking about comparing bookings that had not happened at all over the last 2 to 3 months and compressed all of those bookings into when they've reopened their booking portals into 1 week, essentially. They're like, wow, look, bookings are up 600%. Well, yeah, no duh. Even if you compare a week this year where you go, hey, we're gonna be cruising again soon, come sign up. I even got letters in the mail going, hey, book some cruises. They're advertising like crazy. No duh, when people don't book anything for a 3-month period, and then all of a sudden, people all book within the same week, duh, you're gonna see a surge. So be careful with some of these misleading kind of articles that also don't necessarily give you all the details when you look inside of them. Anyway, let's keep moving on in terms of what Neel said. This was a bit concerning as well. He says the virus continues to spread, and when we look around the world, there's evidence that when countries relax their economic controls, the virus tends to flare back up again. This is an issue because it really says we're not going to be out of the woods on this until we actually figure out a way to solve the virus. He goes on to say, the longer this goes on, unfortunately, the more gradual the recovery is likely to be. And this is a good one too, because it really targets what we need to be doing as a country. I would love to see a robust recovery, but that would require, he's telling us exactly what a strong recovery is going to look like. He's saying we need a breakthrough in vaccines, a breakthrough in widespread testing. We don't really have either of those right now, and a breakthrough in therapies, which we kind of have. We have a little bit of a breakthrough with remdesivir, but even that isn't a cure-all. It's not like it's 100% effective and everybody who gets remdesivir, the Gilead drug that was approved, is surviving. Yeah, the death rate goes down when you're on that sort of treatment cocktail, but it's still not, that solution we really need to get over this. I don't know when we're going to have that confidence. Ultimately, the American people are going to decide how long the shutdown is. And he's kind of alluding here to the fact that, look, if you've got a bunch of families saying, hey, we don't want to get the Rona, we're just going to stay in for 6 months and let's see how our neighbors are doing when they go out to Starbucks. Did they get Starbucks with a little Salta-Rona? Or, I mean, I'm not trying to laugh at this, but it's real. I mean, there are going to be a lot of us who say, let's just wait. Let's see how everybody else does during this reopening. Now, this is where we can get a little bit more focused on where he starts suggesting which 2 forms of stimulus he is looking for. Neel Kashkari says this is a healthcare crisis. Anything Congress can do to support more investment in healthcare will be money well spent. So this is a clear call from the Fed going, hello, go ahead. You got almost a blank check here because we control the money printer to spend more on testing, treatment, and tracing, right? The 3 T's that we keep hearing about. In some phase, this will go on for a year or 2. Then he starts essentially talking about direct forms of stimulus because George Stephanopoulos says, hey, look, we've just heard Secretary of the Treasury Steve Mnuchin come out and say, look, unemployment could go as high as 25%, to which Neel Kashkari says the worst is yet to come on the job front. AKA, the Treasury Secretary is going, look, we could get as high as 25%. Neel Kashkari is going, the worst is yet to come. And so what does he call for? Well, this is exactly what he says. I think Congress is going to have to continue to give assistance to workers who've lost their jobs. 23 to 24% of people are out of work. And this is where he's sort of really alluding to the real level of unemployment. Just because the unemployment rate ticked in at 14.1% doesn't mean there aren't a bunch of other people who didn't report for unemployment, which if you're one of those, you better go report for unemployment. You get retroactive pay. But then there are also people above the income thresholds for unemployment to where there's no point to apply because they almost know they're going to get denied. I mean, I always say when in doubt, apply. But yeah, this makes sense that basically a quarter of our economy is out of work. And any kind of, it's shocking, but when you look at videos of sort of reopening, you might see crowds at beaches, but when you look at reopenings at restaurants, I mean, you're talking skeleton reopenings. Obviously, this is all just starting, but golly. And so now this begs the question, okay, does this mean we should just plan to stay on unemployment longer? Should we just sign up for unemployment now? Because if the Fed's saying, hey, keep that unemployment pay coming, that extra $600 a week, come on, that's like $2,400 a month of stimulus, I may as well be unemployed. I don't necessarily think so. I think the Fed is clearly, now essentially directly saying Congress needs to do more, aka give more money to the people who are really affected by this, the people who have lost their jobs. They later go on to talk about how the last thing we want to see are empty strip malls and bankruptcies, because as companies and businesses lack demand and they lack customers, they go bankrupt, and it's going to be years before those strip malls get filled back up. That's why Neel Kashkari thinks this is going to be a long, sort of prolongated recovery with the potential for second waves in reopening like we've seen in other parts of the world. So what kind of stimulus is he really suggesting? Well, it's hard to just say, oh, just unemployment. Because if we just say unemployment, we know that's not going to be very popular with the Republican Party in the Senate or Trump. Remember, they're pushing, well, Trump is at least pushing for more of a payroll tax holiday. So in my opinion, I think we're going to see a lot more of a combination of direct payment in the form of stimulus and at the same time business incentives and payroll tax cuts and of course money for testing, tracing, and treatment, because we do want to motivate the country to get back to work while at the same time, yeah, hey, everybody gets more stimulus payments without necessarily that potential moral hazard of perpetual unemployment, aka we could just be on unemployment forever. See, think about it this way. If you get a stimulus check and you're unemployed, but then you also get incentivized to go back to work, you could do both. You could go back to work and you could get a stimulus check, which is good because now if you get more money going back to work and you get a stimulus check, you win on both fronts. If they say, okay, we're going to give workers incentives to go back to work, but at the same time, we're going to give people incentives not to go back to work, you have to pick one. And picking one is not good for the economy. So I do not personally think a big push for unemployment is going to survive. If it comes up in this Democratic bill that we're expecting to be proposed on Monday or Tuesday, I don't know if it's going to make it to the end. I think it's more likely for us to see incentives for businesses, payroll tax deductions, and direct stimulus payments, because then you win on both fronts. You give people money to spend and you put people back to work. And talking about going back to work, Lauren made a little home vlog yesterday to kind of show her POV of what it's like when I make these videos during the day and afterwards. I'll put a link for that down below. Her channel name's Meet Lauren. See, we're really creative like that, like asking you to go to the links down below to join my programs, use that coupon code expiring soon, get your 2 free stocks with Webull, because that is supposedly expiring within the next 24 to 48 hours. So I'll deposit $100, get 2 free stocks with Webull. They said in the email, we are reducing it from 2 free stocks to 1 free stock because in little tests we've done, we haven't noticed a difference in people signing up. So AKA, they're gonna give you half as much and still expect you to sign up in the future, which I guess is brilliant marketing. But folks, I wanna know what you think. What do you think? Do you actually think that Congress is going to just give us more money to spend our time on unemployment? Or do you think it's more likely to see incentives incentives to go back to work coupled with stimulus to get us actually spending again. We can't have people going back to work without having people have money to go spend. Think about it. It's kind of like, oh, go work, but wait, nobody has money and you're working to build the money to spend, but no customers are coming, so your business is just gonna shut down again. To me, it makes very much sense to expect stimulus and incentives to go back to work, not more unemployment incentives, and I think that aligns directly with what Neel Kashkari means. That would support people who have lost their jobs and who've lost their income, and that would help prevent long-lasting damage to our economy, at least mitigate it. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content and my commentary, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot. It makes me feel really good, and I can celebrate with Lauren. We are on our way to crossing 550,000 soon. I'm so stoked. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.